This is another News for You live stream brought to you by Freedom Media WA.
Everyone needs to be able to live safely and be respectful of difference.
We're fabulous, don't mess us up! We're here! We're queer! Fuck off, fascist! We're fabulous, don't mess us up!
So that's the tolerant left just there. We are live streaming. Would you?
Interested in your fascist media? Fuck off.
Okay, so that's a very, very inclusive comment that you've just provided there.
Yeah, I'm not inclusive towards fuck it.
No, thank you. No comment.
So I'm here to get anybody's point of view, anybody's opinion.
Go talk to them because
a drag queen is just someone in an outfit. It's no different to like if someone was in a dinosaur costume up there.
Very confusing age to be reading these type of books to them, and I just think it's very wrong for the city to be funding that.
There is no question that many people have a lot going on in their lives with jobs, families, hobbies. The pace of modern life makes it very hard to keep track of every big scandal and, more importantly, what those that have been elected to represent the views of the majority, not the minority, when shaping new laws. Add in the mix of modern media who, when they portray their narrative exactly how they're paid by their sponsors to pitch your mainstream media news, with the outcome being that they can whip millions of people into a frenzy, and by the time the truth or the devil in the detail comes out, most people would have moved on with their lives. The past week, WA Parliament, there is a double pushback that has been implemented by the WA Labor government, the ex-McGowan government, now led by Roger Cook, down a slippery slope, with Sue Ellery inferring that being a biological female is a feeling. WA Labor MP Sue Ellery, the Minister for Women's Interests, said this in the upper house of WA Parliament last week in response to independent MP, the Honourable James Hayward MLC, when he asked this question. Let's have a look.
Everyone needs to be able to live safely and be respectful of difference.
Honourable James Hayward.
President, my question, without notice of which sum has been given, is to the Minister for Women's Interests. I refer to the word woman, I ask. 1, in the context of the Minister's women's interests portfolio, how is the word woman defined? 2, are biological males born with XY chromosomes who believe they are women due to gender dysphoria represented by the Minister for Women's Interests? And 3, does the Minister support biological men born with XY chromosomes who identify as women being allowed into spaces which in the past have been reserved exclusively for biological females, such as female public toilets, change rooms and women's sports?
Minister for Women's Interests.
Thanks, President. For some people, gender was not fixed at birth, and for some, it's fluid. Those people are real, and their experience is real. Everyone needs to be able to live safely and be respectful of difference.
Apologies there, just the wrong video to kick off with. I took you back to the beginning. But anyway, moving on. Apart from the WA Labor Minister Sue Ellery not giving an answer to the meaning of the word woman, what you really need to know is the second push down the slippery slope came from the state's top lawman, and that's John Quigley, the WA Attorney General. The lawman who was forced to apologise in WA Parliament with what he described as a silly little error when he gave evidence in the defamation case between Clive Palmer and Mark McGowan. John Quigley is going to repeal a number of acts and create new legislation to make changing one's birth gender quicker and cheaper than processing the transferring of ownership of a motor vehicle. You really can't make this stuff up, and you have to ask, is this another silly little question? Let's have a look.
Attorney General.
The process for applicants having to submit extensive medical and psychological reports and assessments is onerous on the applicant, staff and board members. The review of the Gender Reassignment Act 2000 is well overdue. The Cook government is progressing legislation to repeal the Gender Reassignment Act 2000, abolish the Gender Reassignment Board and amend the Births, Deaths and Marriages Registration Act of 1998 to implement a new streamlined administrative process for sex and gender recognition. Under the new process, a person will no longer be required to undergo a reassignment procedure to change the sex on their birth certificate. Instead, the applicants will apply directly to the Registry of Births, Deaths and Marriages to change the sex or gender recorded on their birth certificate. These reforms will bring Western Australia in line with the processes available for amending sex or gender on the birth certificates throughout most of Australia. The new legislation is currently being drafted and is expected to be introduced into this Parliament later this year. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
There's no doubt that McGowan, oops, apologies for that little silly error, or Roger Cook, will use Labor numbers to ram through yet another piece of legislation through Parliament, and that has the grave potential to deprive women of the right to feel safe in women's only spaces, as Labor WA government are prioritising gender identity over biological reality, and that should raise some very real community concern for women and children's safety, not to mention common sense. But where will this slippery slope end? If the progress on gender identity in the US is anything to go by, I'm going to leave you with this thought.
So now we are seeing kids that are identifying as animals going to school, and they are purring instead of answering questions, and they meow, and the teachers are not allowed to question it because it's considered a queer identity.
So you have kids that are going to school and they're saying, I'm a cat. Mm-hmm. And the teachers have to affirm them as a cat.
Yes. So it's
so
not
schools
just
are like
the
literal zoos now, basically.
They are.
I am a 27-year-old transgender woman. I am a wolf-therian and a member of the furry fandom.
When and how did you discover this inner wolfness?
Probably around age 10 or 11.
Brought to you by Freedom Media WA, where journalism should never be a government narrative.